There we go. Good. So, has anybody read the book fully? Book to last?
A long time ago.
Long time ago. Yeah.
No, not this one.
It's a bit of a classic. This was Jim's first book, although it says best-selling author of Good to Great. This one he wrote first, and then Good to Great came after that. And then he wrote How the Mighty Fall, which was obviously as a result of the 2008 crash. And then he did one on level 5 leadership, which was his sort of, I think that was his last one. I'm not sure if he's done one since. So just a very good book. We got to see Jim speak about quite a long time ago actually. It's got to be 8 years ago, I think, up in London. He did a live sort of televisual broadcast across the world, and there were only certain places you could go to see him. It was sort of before this sort of technology, so we all had to go up to London and go in a big theatre and watch him on a big screen as it was broadcast live. And he's the chief or one of the head lecturers at Harvard Business School. So he's very much from a research-based individual. So empirical data is his sort of middle name, I think. He loves looking at all the data and then finding statistics and then pulling out of that data. So he's definitely says, I'm not a business person. I've never run a business. There's no intention to run a business. I've just researched all of these businesses and looked for traits, looked for similarities, commonalities between them, and then I'm just reporting what I find. So so that's what I quite like. It's not an opinion. It's not I ran this business and this is my way of doing it. It's purely out of his research to what he's actually found. So I think that first bit's so the first chapter then, paradox is making sure that while the core is preserved or stays intact, progress should be stimulated. I mean that in itself is a pretty bold statement, isn't it? What's your take on that one, Bruce? So just got you with a mouthful of
yeah, that's okay.
Mouthful of breakfast.
So you're going to have a core and preserve it. Well, in the context of what I've read, for the rest of that, where it's talking about your values and, I guess values is probably the main thing. So you look at in my business, we've got, I believe, pretty strong values, but a lot of those come from myself, from when I first started business on my own. The way that I sort of practiced, the way I worked with my clients, I had quite a very strong belief in how I should conduct myself and the level of service that I should offer, and it was really very clear. I was for instance, the quality of service. It's very much about very high quality, wanting to go beyond, to impress our clients, in the hope that we get repeat business. So I think those values, really, they're just part of me. It came naturally, and so it's because it's just there. That is the core, and it's rigid, it's solid, it's quite powerful in a way. And as the company has grown, we've managed to. Well, I didn't really understand what they were to start with. I needed other people to point it out to me, really, what I was doing. But once we've captured it in words and then articulated it to the team, everybody has absorbed those, and it's become very powerful. And it's easy to stick to, and it really helps with the decision making and that type of thing.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think your point there of we don't often see it. Like ourselves, we don't often see our good traits. Many of us just focus on the negatives, that things we can't do, rather than things we're actually good at. I was thinking, Sabrina, I think A. Roberts is probably a little bit of this. I see a wry smile on your face there of the when you've got preserving the core is sometimes precedent over progress, because we get stuck in our ways, that this is the way that works for us, this is the way we've always done it, which is really strong and powerful because it attracts the right people, but it actually stops you from adapting, stops you from going forwards. What's your take on that?
Yes, in a sense, it does stop you. But at the same time, I mean, our company's been going since 1908. Not with me, I hasten to add. But I think we have probably been slow to change on some occasions, but that may be disrespectful to some people who have gone before. I mean, inevitably, over that length of time, we've had to change. And I can think of several periods in the history of the business whilst I've been with it when we've made some very major changes. Because later on in this, it talks about you've got to try things, and if they fail, well, you pick up the pieces and carry on. And we've certainly done that, and none of that is visible now. When I was reading it and trying to work out, well, what exactly is our core, because we've obviously survived a lot. And I couldn't decide whether we just have a material core, in other words, or to provide good quality trees to people to grow their own, or whether it's more aesthetic. And I think if you talk to the staff, they certainly wouldn't understand, or they wouldn't quote back an emotional purpose. It would be much more matter of fact. So I'm sure we need actually to give some thought to what our core really is. And I think it's changing now. In fact, I know it's changing now. But we've known what we were trying to achieve, and we've done it. But whether we've always done it in quite the best way, and we certainly haven't committed to paper or to the staff, if you like, a nice succinct purpose and values. I think they might know some of the values from practice, but we haven't committed it. So we need to do that.
Yeah. And Gary, what about you? Have you seen the positives of this, or perhaps the negatives of this, where again progress is made and losing the core, or the core is maintained and progress hasn't been made?
No, we've been going for about 15 years now, and we do have a core. It is, we provide solutions. We're a shipping company, we're a freight forwarding company, but people come to us to solve their problems. And for us, we can simply just state, this is what we do. We ship all around the world, we have various markets that we work in, but the core is that we find solutions to issues. And like Sabrina was saying, is it necessary to actually verbalize and write down these things? We don't believe that, because if you live it, if your values are core to your business, it shows anyway. And we'll come on to it a little bit later, but ours is quite simple, and it's quite powerful because it works. Like you say, if things change, then we find a solution to it.
I think that that is really key. Once you've got that, we'll see some examples in a minute. That I've always said the purpose, that ideology is the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, that's what we're heading towards. Now things can change, get in our way, and we have to adapt as we're moving towards that light. But you've got to have in your mind that that's where we are. And I think times like now, where there is, in certain industries, there's a massive shift You know, there's a big shift here. So, you know, I'm jumping down a little bit, but we'll take Walt Disney, you know, and you know, their theme parks, you know, have all been closed. So, you know, but if their purpose is bringing happiness to millions, they have to adapt. They have to change. They have to take what's in front of them and go, right, look, we can't just sit here and put our head in the sand and do nothing. You know, our purpose is to bring happiness to millions. So how do we do that in a different way? You know, so, you know, Gary, if yours is, you know, was it shipping solutions? You know, shipping solutions. Now, that's great, you know, because you're constantly having to find solutions no matter what happens. At the moment, let's say all the boats are sort of, you know, laid up, right? You know, I've got to find different ways. You know, we have to use different transportation methods to get your product to where you want to be. So you should find that, you know, in adversity, you're really understanding your core allows you to adapt. It encourages you to adapt. It forces you to change. Whereas if you say that, you know, we just grow plants, you know, then, well, you know, it doesn't help with that as much as it does when you're really clear with that big picture purpose. But I have seen it, you know, where that core, you know, is so ingrained, you know, that the world changes. So if you take, you know, like, you know, go back to businesses that have failed in the past, you know, Woolworths, Blockbuster, you know, their sort of core has been so rigid. You know, Kodak, their core was so rigid in film photography, yeah, that we make film photography. Well, the world changes and they doesn't want film photography anymore. So that core prevents them from changing. Whereas if they'd actually said, you know, we bring pictures to, you know, pictures to people, they'd have to change. They'd have to adapt into that change as the world changes. So we've got to, you know, when we write our purposes, we've got to say, look, does it allow us to adapt? Does it encourage us to adapt if the environment in which we're living actually has a major shift? Which, you know, what we're going through now does highlight that fact. So 5 key components. First is the ideology. So, you know, what is it that we want to losing your picture? So the ideology is the purpose of values. Okay, we often talk about, and he brings it into his good to great, but vision, values, and purpose. Okay, but the purpose really is that sort of starting place. So short, clear, simple summary that the company is all about. It gives meaning to why the company exists. And, you know, I think you've got 2 there, Walt Disney's and Merck. I don't know if we've got any others. I think there's 2. We've got a document that has a few more in it. So if we want a few more examples, I can let you have that. You know, and it's not easy. You know, you know, with some companies they can get this in 5 minutes. In some it takes months. You know, but I think when you find it, when you actually write it down, you imagine at Walt Disney and you're going through that exercise and you come up with, you know, well, we bring happiness to millions of people, you know, to make people happy. Then you just know that that's the right one. You just get that feeling. Yeah, that's a good purpose. You know, we can all get behind that. When we recruit people, do you want to come and work for us? You know, our company brings happiness to millions of people. People want to come and work for that sort of business. You know, they're enlightened by that vision at the end of the tunnel. You know, Merck, to save, improve lives of people around the world. Do you want to go and work for a company that does that? Sure do. Yeah. Do you want to, you know, come for work that makes widgets? Well, yes, no. Okay, so it's a really, you know, it is such a powerful thing to have this core and actually sort of, you know, really have it to drive us forward. So, Sabrina, did you sort of think about what that could be for you guys?
Yes, I've been thinking hard about it, but I have to say I haven't yet come up with a succinct, simple, precise statement that's got, you said just now, you know, when you say it, you'll know it's right. Well, I haven't said that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary, clearly he said, you know, we bring solutions. Sounds excellent.
Yeah.
I'm still haven't got beyond we send people trees, except that I do know that our key value has been right from the start, I think, but it's changed over years, is service.
Yeah.
So, but then that's the next thing, that's the value. So I still have to work out what I really think, but it isn't just me. It either should be obvious. So I think perhaps, you know, over a glass of wine or something, I might just ask John what he thinks the purpose of our business is. I shall be interested to see what he says, but it won't be short. That's the thing.
No. You'll have to work on narrowing it down to a few words. But,
yes, yeah, I'm still working on it.
It does come out of a conversation, and sometimes talking to your clients. You know, often you're, you know, the wood for the trees. You know, just use the pun, but you know, you're too close to it to
Yes.
see that bigger picture. And talking to clients.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think probably what I need to do is to look back over some of our, well, not testimonials as such, but letters we've had, or not letters, emails and things, and just see what, in a nutshell, people say, the good ones, about us, because we have had a lot, and they've probably got a suitable phrase in them. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be words in there that sort of, you know, those emotive words that really hit home with it.
Yes.
Bruce, have you? I know we've done a bit of work in the past on this.
We've always sort of struggled really to try and capture it in, you know, just a few words. I think we've got a fairly, you know, good idea as to, you know, what it is. It's just working out how to articulate it, and we're forever messing about with those words and rearranging them. Or I've got my folder here from our last meeting when we were on this topic, and we had to make companies engaged in high-tech product design more successful. But yeah, it's still quite wordy, and noticed I had to get my folder out
to remember. There is that. It does need to be, you know, it's almost like you want that stick of rock, and it's that writing around the rock. But,
there's a phrase that we sometimes use: enabling engineering excellence. Yeah, and that's something that is memorable. You know, it's got 3 E's in it. So yeah, maybe, but it's wanting to be precise enough to, for people perhaps to have an understanding as to what we do, but not too precise that it's not going to have, live for decades and decades.
I mean, that's if you sort of look at the Walt Disney one, Bring Happiness to Millions. That's quite simple to understand, and it sort of fits with what they're doing. The Merck one, to save and improve the lives of people around the world. You know, if you didn't know what Merck did, that purpose doesn't really help you, does it?
I don't know what Merck does.
Gary, you can tell them what Merck does.
I think they're a pharmaceutical company, or were a pharmaceutical company.
I think they're at your science park, aren't they?
Yeah, they were. They've actually moved out now. I'm not too sure where they've gone.
Yeah, I just suddenly thought, Merck were, as you go into the science part on the right-hand side there.
Yeah, that particular unit did a lot of world-leading research for liquid crystal technology. Right. And interestingly, a lot of that is things like televisions and sort of modern windows, where a window can have, you don't need curtains, you press a button and it goes black. Right. So how that fits into that to save and improve lives, I suppose. Is it improving the life by having a nice high definition TV? Or, I don't know.
Well, it certainly improves lives, doesn't it? So I say if it, what it can do is it sort of, we call it defining your sandpit. You can play anywhere you want to play, but often your purpose can actually define your sandpit. So Gary's you know, is definitely said, right, the sandpit we're playing is shipping. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean ships, does it, Gary? You know, it's just shipping is moving something from some place to another place. So it's very much that's the sandpit we're going to play. So, you know, Gary opening up a holiday home, you know, as a subsidiary of that isn't going to happen, because how is that going to actually live to that purpose? Doesn't mean you can't have another company completely separate with its own purpose and values, etc., but it shouldn't be part of that organizational structure. Otherwise, people just don't understand, well, are we shipping or are we in a holiday home? Okay, so sometimes the focus of it allows you just to be focused rather than have product drift. And if you read How the Mighty Fall, because this Built to Last and Good to Great were about these businesses that had survived 40 plus years, showing continual growth, and then in 2008 some of those businesses went bust. Yeah, so it's no good having businesses that go bust and saying, well, look, these are examples of good to great. So he went back and looked at why they'd failed, and often one of the main reasons they'd failed is they went off purpose. You know, they had a thing called hubris, and they started looking for things that, you know, it was just about the bottom line, about profitability, about making money, and the FTSE and the stock exchange were forcing them to, you've got to make more money, got to make more money, got to make more money. So they ended up into areas that were nothing to do with their purpose. And those are the ones that they weren't experts in, they couldn't be the best in the world at, and they cost them a lot of money, and that's led to a bit of their downfall. So where are we? Good. So yeah, and it's that purpose of, you know, something's not just done, it's always happening. You know, it's a goal that's never fulfilled. Your vision, okay, and your goals, you should be able to achieve those. You know, you should get to a point where you've actually achieved it. But the purpose, you know, goes on and on and on and on. You know, when is Shipping Solutions ever finished? It's never finished. It's just, yeah, it just carries on and on and on. So the second part then is the values. You know, so these are the sort of, you know, if the purpose is the light at the end of the tunnel, okay, so that's where we're going to go. To me, the values define the tunnel. Okay, that defines the tunnel walls. So this is what we're not going to go outside of. This is we're working towards there, yeah, and we're going to be within these core values and live our life to that. So that they're strongly held beliefs. Okay, and you know, I do like that last statement. You know, don't look for perfect values, because there aren't any perfect values. You know, they are your values. There's no such thing as a right or wrong value. You know, and I always say, when people, you know, when we recruit, we use values, and if somebody comes in with different values to us, it's not for us to judge their values. You know, same as it's not for us to judge somebody's skin color or their religion or anything else. You know, they have their values, and that's their values. That's fine. But if they don't fit with our values, then yeah, we're probably not going to get on particularly well on a long-term basis. So we've got to make sure that we're clear what ours are, and then attract people that share those values with us. So you've got to sort of say, yeah, what do we actually believe in? You know, what's our identity? And often these do come, I find, from, you know, from the founder, you know, from the people that set the business up. You know, what are your core beliefs? What do you believe in? You know, and a really good way to think about this is, when people do something wrong that irritates you, what's that? Because generally, if they do that, that shows that it's going against one of those values. Okay, because the values are, you know, if somebody goes against your values, that's what annoys you. Yeah, so it's sometimes you can't think what they actually are. Think about what you hate, what you don't like, then find the opposite of that becomes that particular value. So I know, Bruce, we did quite a bit of work on this with you guys. have you got your pack there? Can you remember your values?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, our values are empathy, considered, trust, smart, and passionate.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, that came about through a few brainstorming sessions with the whole team, where we're using post-it notes and slapping them up on the wall, just trying to understand our identity and the sort of things that we felt were good for us. And I think the fact that I can remember them shows
you didn't need
got
your
good
book for
clarity
that one.
on that. Yeah, but I think we're quite clear on those, and it's I think most of the team are clear on them too. So yeah, for us, they work very well, and we when we're making decisions within the business, we'll often, if we're struggling to come to an answer, often we'll reflect on our values and help. Our values will inspire us in terms of giving us the right decision. So we find it very helpful. We certainly have clarity on it, and can be very helpful in all sorts of different ways. It can be very helpful, as you mentioned earlier, with recruitment and trying to work out if an individual is going to be a good match in terms of the type of person they are. It's very easy to focus on the skills and perhaps their capability, but if their values are not aligned, then it could be a nightmare, and they may not make decisions that are in line with everybody else.
Yeah. Cool. Gary, did you manage to do any work on this?
Not particularly, no. Like you say, we know what our core is, we know what our culture is, but to pin down specific values, I think it's not something we've done as a company, and personally I've tried to think of it, but I haven't come to anything as succinct as Bruce has. Yeah,
it's an interesting one, because in the old days it was sort of mission and culture, and then I think in the 80s the mission statement became sort of bland, customer centric. We give great service. It was they're all you could just cut and paste them from one place to another, but it was a box. It was a box that was ticked for people. And as I'll show you in a bit, with the danger with some of these is they become, what I would say, they have a context. So if your values are great customer service, to me that's not a value, because you put it in the context of customers. So values must be contextless. You must be able to have them throughout every aspect of the business. Okay, so from making a cup of tea. So if we looked at Walmart, and Walmart's value is frugality. Okay, if I was making a cup of tea at Walmart, what would I be doing, Sabrina?
If you were making a cup of tea for them?
Yeah. So if I work for Walmart and they've asked me to make a cup of tea, and the value of Walmart is frugality, describe to me how I would make my cup of tea.
As quickly as possible. Simple.
What sort of tea bag would I use?
What sort of tea bag? Yeah. The nearest one to hand. No, I'm not sure I actually understand that. So
if I was in Walmart and that value was frugality, I'd expecting value tea bags. Yeah.
A cheap tea bag.
There wouldn't be expensive tea bags. It wouldn't be
no
Darjeeling or Lapsang Souchong. We just make tea.
Yes.
It's fit for purpose.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it'll be a quick slurp of milk. It'll be in a mug. Yeah, there'll be no fancy stuff with it.
Right. Yes. Understood.
So if I went into Walmart and I had the full tea set, bone china, stuff like that, that would not be in line with my values.
Right.
Okay. So
Yes.
So these values have got to be applicable in every aspect of your working life. It can't just be, frugality for our customers. No, if we're going to live the value of frugality, it's got to be across the board.
Yes.
And if I had that, would I be expecting, directors to put in fictitious expense claims?
Right. Well, I mean, okay, and to a certain extent, we're a bit about frugality, but not across the board. But for me, this is much easier than actually the purpose, because I think we are and always have been about service, and that is just service, not specifically customer service, although we like to think that, but we like to be about service to each other, as well as service to whoever we're coming, face to face or these days email. We will always go and expect our staff to go, where possible, the extra mile. There is a statement on the bottom of our letterheads, and it's been there since 1908 or soon after. And I can't remember the exact wording because it's quite long, and I was hoping I had one to hand, but I haven't at home. And it's all about, don't let the sun go down without having achieved something that day, and feel good about your deeds.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've all been about. And I think the staff would recognise that. But then you went on to say, what irritates you, in other words, the things that are going against your service. Certainly in the office, or the admin team, who are not all in the office now because they're spread at their homes, but when we were all in the office, we would expect to take turns to make the cup of tea.
Yeah.
We've recently taken on someone that doesn't have that value at all, doesn't drink tea, therefore is not going to make anyone else a cup of tea. And actually that has grated a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure the service is there, and given time, maybe we'll work on it. But it was a bit disappointing. But other than that, and I think, and this is going a bit further, but I mean, one of the things that irritates me hugely is people not paying attention to detail. So within that service, we'll go the extra mile, but we also want it to be absolutely right.
And I think that's what we'll come on to when we look at taking this from culture, is when we define those, generic's not probably the right word, but these context-less words like frugality, like service, like simplicity, what happens then is we can apply those to a situation, like tea making, and say, right, well, service in tea making means this. It means, we take our turns. You serve other people before yourself. Don't go make yourself a bloody drink, without asking everybody else. That's what service means. Now, some people need that as a reminder, an understanding of how we live that value. Other people just get it like that. If people continually go against it, it's because deep down with them, serving other people is not a value that they hold dear. I'm not saying it's wrong, because there's some very good people that, don't do that. But if you want to get on around here, you've got to show signs of living to those values. So what happens then is we take those values, and then what we want to do is then bring the culture from them. Okay, so we have this sort of indoctrine of process, tightness of fit, elitism. Nordstrom employees are said to get together 7 a.m. meetings. There's a chance to chat. I can do it. So it becomes these habits. Okay, these sort of habits, or in action we have this little term, rituals, but spelled R-I-C-H. R-A-C-H-U-A-L-S, rituals. They make a rich society, they make a rich culture. Ideally, if you do them in a business, they make the business rich. So these rituals, these inductive process, these habits, is what binds people together. Okay, people that think together stay together. Yeah, they perform together, and it takes time to build this, but the essence is that those values are the sort of the bedrock on which all of this is built. But the more you can get into habits, certain quirky ways of doing things, I think, odd things that come together. Bruce has disappeared, but in Action Coach, Brad read this book many years ago and built the culture of Action Coach. We've got, I think we did it slightly wrong. We got 14 points of culture. I can't remember all the 14 points because it's 14 points, and I can't think beyond 4. I think he should have had 4 points, 4 values, but that's another. I'm not telling Brad that he's got it wrong. But there's certain rituals that we do. So it's just saying, Bruce, when you go to one of our conferences, we do a stretch. Okay, so when we all meet, before we start learning, we all do a stretch, arms up, touch your toes, bend over backwards. Yeah, after the first session, we do a whoosh, which is a Tai Chi movement where you sort of you grab the knowledge you've just gained, you let go of all your old knowledge that's holding you back, and then you whoosh through. It's a silly thing, it's for a high C, so back to dispo for a high, cautious, calculating type person, an introverted person, it's quite an awkward thing to do. Okay, but it is an inherent part of the values of Action Coach. And if you sit there and go, I'm not doing that, then basically you're saying, I'm not fitting in. I don't want to fit in with you. Okay, and if you say that, then you're not part of the team. You will not be there long term. You will drift apart. Okay, so for me, yes, I get it, I do it. Am I totally bought into it? Not totally. I don't see it's but I understand enough about it that it's part of the culture of that organization that I will do it. Okay, it's not making me, I'm not sitting there going, I'm not doing that for the sake of that. No, I'll fit in, because I believe in the culture, I believe in that, in the organization. So these processes, this tightness that we're trying to bring these people together, is the glue that holds them and allows them, when times get tough, such as now, if you've got a really strong culture and things get tough, that bond stops them breaking up. And if we break up into individualistic behavior, we fail. Okay, no team, they say no I in team. There's it's the team that gets people through. Individualistically, then we fail. Okay. So have you got can you sort of think of certain rituals that you have, Bruce, that sort of do bond that team together?
There's all sorts of things really. So at the moment we have a daily meeting. So we have 23 staff, but every day at 11:20 on Microsoft Teams, we all get together and we'll go through and sort of check in and let everyone know that they're still alive, and just let everyone know what they're doing. And it doesn't take very long. We run through the whole team. But I think that's an example of a ritual or something that we do. All sorts of things. We have a monthly meeting. Part of that, we run a values card draw. So during the month, if an individual does something where someone else recognises that as being very much embodying the company's values, yeah, that can be recognised with a values card. So yeah, that's yeah, very much yeah, part of our culture and the activity. And value cards are being awarded on a yeah, every day a number of value cards will be awarded across the team. And then we have the ritual of the monthly meeting of this prize draw. So yeah, we pick out 2 value cards out of an electronic hat, and yeah, there's a prize, you know, for those 2 winners. So yeah, you get to pick things like I don't know, a quadcopter or a video player, or you know, you might get an Amazon voucher, you know, things like that. But yeah, yeah, all sorts of little things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they are. They often start without any thought about them, and I think that those are often the best ones. You know, if you manipulate it, they tend to come and then they drift off. So you know, I know, you know, some companies, you had Pizza Friday, so you know, every Friday there were, you know, pizzas were delivered, you know, ice creams, you know, sweets. There was the bowl of fruit that's there. You know, all of these little things that are just the little habits that make people go, do you know what, I really enjoy working here, because it's, you know, they do care, they do think of us, they do bring us together. But it's very much, you know, it's got to be in line with those values, and it has to be something that, you know, you believe in, because otherwise you don't get the consistency. There's nothing worse than having things that start and stop and start and stop, because you actually do damage to the culture. You know, you're actually saying we don't really have a culture, and then it also, you know, it starts to go a little bit wrong. The bottom one's an interesting one. This elitism. And don't forget, you know, Jim is looking here at, you know, the companies that have survived 40 years, at least 40 years, shown year-on-year growth. Okay, so continue to be there. But I do, you know, I think there has to be this sort of, you know, if you look at any football team, you know, there is a sense of elitism that they are the best, you know, or the best they can be. Because if you go out on the football field and you don't think you've got a chance of winning, you're gonna lose. And that's when you see, like, you know, Liverpool at the moment, you know, Arsenal have had it, Chelsea have had it. You know, when they're on that winning streak, there's that sort of sense of, right, we are the best, and we can't be beaten. That confidence that they have that allows them to perform at the best of their ability. You know, if we don't have that, or at worst we think we're inferior, then we're just going to get more of the same. You know, it's going to drive that set of behaviours that reinforce that viewpoint. So yeah, Gary, is there any out of those 3 that sort of resonate with you?
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yep.
Yep, hi. Yeah, there's 2 there actually. With the tightness of fit, with the company culture, ours is, we've managed to succinctly put this, and for us it's been going back for quite a few years. Is the NMT family.
Yep.
We are a big family. You know, a family is not a democracy. There's
Yep.
always a figure.
Yep.
Sort of thing. And you know, we look after each other. And we also give each other a kick up the ass if we need it.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much part of our culture. And like I say, finding people to fit that can be very difficult.
Yeah.
So our interview process is quite involved. It's at least 3 rounds.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we have to make sure we get the right people that will buy into that. But the NMT family, literally, it comes from the top. It comes from, you know, from our group director in Holland, sort of thing. It's something the MD really believes in, and we do. You know, we look after each other, you know, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
The
I
other
think
one is like,
you've got you're not all in one place, are you? You've got offices around the country. So, and I think when we're looking at, you know, coming out of this virus, is, you know, people are saying, oh well, we don't need offices and we can work from home. yeah, that's fine. I have no issue with that. But this still applies. You've still got to have that purpose. You've still got to have those core values. And sometimes having people not in the same building, it's harder to actually build that than it is when you're all together. Those little rituals you have, like pizzas on a Friday because you're all there, are generally easier than if you've got people all over the place. So if you want to do pizzas on a Friday, you've got to do home delivery to every one of your team, and you can't leave anyone out. This is the key thing. If you do it for half the people you like and not the people you're not too sure on, that's not you're actually helping to expect diverse the culture, break it down and create silos. The silo mentality is generally where we're not sharing the same culture. And I do find this in some big organizations where you've got the finance team over here, you've got the operations there, you've got the sales there, and you've got the marketing there. They're all in separate departments. What happens is if you're not working on this, they each end up with their own culture. Okay? Because if you don't create the culture, it will form. Culture is just a natural human sort of requirement. So therefore, if you're not setting what the parameters are of a tunnel, you'll end up with 5 tunnels, each going off in their own direction. And then you're sitting there wondering why these silos are not working together. Well, they're not working together because they don't have a clear purpose. As we'll see in a minute, they're probably not sure what the goal is, and they're all completely disarray with their values, and they've got their own rituals. So this is why the bigger the organization, the harder you have to work on this, because you've got more people trying to keep into that common value traits. Okay, so it certainly doesn't get any easier with this, as you grow. And I think this is where a lot of fast growth companies, can fail, is because they're not keeping track of this. They're not keeping check of it. They're not making sure, okay, I can see that one's going off. I need to bring it back in line. So second stage, then stimulate progress. So that first bit was about getting the core right. The core is the purpose and the values. We're now looking to actually stimulate that progress, and this is, I just love Jim sort of captured this big, hairy, audacious goal. The BHAG. This is really that sort of big picture of where are we going to go? So again, the purpose is at the end of the tunnel. The values define the tunnel. The goal is the next stage, because we're not going to get to the end of the tunnel. There should always be a light, but we're not going to get there. So I've now got to set some milestones, something that is now a little bit more smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic within a time frame. Okay, but the BHAG, is something that is a little bit scary. It's a little bit pushing us out of our comfort zone. Okay. So, the one that he's used here was, Kennedy's, 1961. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out, so 9 years, of landing a man on the moon and returning him home safely. And that is such a good BHAG in many ways, because, was it clear? Yes, it was fundamentally clear. It wasn't get a man on the moon, it was bring him back safely. They knew they could get a man on the moon. They've been able to do that since the sort of, I think, the 40s, to actually get him there. What they couldn't do was get him back. so that was the real part to it. So, was it compelling? Did it hit, when we say SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic in a time frame, it's quite left brain, because it was actually devised by somebody who sort of wanted to take woolly emotional goals and actually give them more clarity. What can happen if you go too smart is they become a bit dull and boring. So you probably know that I add an I and E at the end of SMART, become SMARTY goals. So they need to be inspiring and emotional. So they've got to get you here. They've got to really get you in that sort of, in your gut, and go, wouldn't that be good to get? Yeah, that would be fantastic. If we get a man to the moon and bring him home, that would be brilliant. So it's got to have this compellingness that says, do we want to be involved in this? You know, was it committed? Yeah. You know, he could have just said it and then gone off the boil, but you know, that wasn't Kennedy's style. You know, and you know, it was bold, unreasonable. Yeah, and it got people excited. You know, and this is, I think, a lot of businesses fail to do this. You know, it becomes a mundane, do as we've always done, get as we've always got. You know, there's no sort of real, where are we going to be in 5-10 years time? You know, who are we going to be? Who are we going to become? Are we changing? You know, because people do, I know people resist change, but we all do like change. You know, because if we didn't, we'd still be crawling around sucking our thumbs. Okay, so we actually are empowered by that change to move forwards. So it's, again, it takes a bit of work. You know, it's often in businesses monetary led. You know, we want to be a £1 million business, a £5 million business, a £10 million business. And that's okay, you know, because it's, you know, we do need to have that specificity on it. But you've got to understand that you're going to put this back to your team. And for your team, do they understand what a £10 million business is? If you're a £1 million business, yeah. Let's imagine you're a £1 million business and everyone is busy. Okay, everyone's running around doing loads of work. And you come in one day and say, right, guys, I've decided to have my big, hairy, audacious goal, yeah, which is going to be £10 million turnover in 2 years' time. What's your team going to think, Sabrina?
Well, we told them it had to be 2 million this year. And I think they thought, well, you know, they've said these sort of things before, but this time we are really making it happen with your help. Yeah, I think underneath it all, we have goals, but we are certainly not good at committing to them, nor at publicising them, nor at recognising when we get there. We certainly fall into the trap of, you know, just carrying on as we've done before, as you know, not entirely, because as I said earlier, we've had to change, but it takes us too long to get there. We need to be much smarter.
I think, you know, so that there's an element there of, you know, we've had to change, but so often change is forced by the environment. The environment changes, we have to change.
Yeah.
Okay. This goes beyond that. This is saying the environment might not change, but we're going to change anyway. So it's an internally driven change rather than an externally driven change. Okay, and this is the difference for me as a BHAG. A BHAG is saying, right, we are going to change. We're going to move forward. We're going to put a man on the moon. We don't have to. The environment isn't saying, you know, the world resources are going to run out and therefore we've got to have, you know, moon bases and we've got to live on the moon. We have to do this. We're just saying we're going to do it because we want to do it, because there's an opportunity. Wouldn't it be great if we did this? Wouldn't it be fun? Okay, and that's where I say the difference when I was going for that. If we go back to team who are busy doing $1 million turnover and we say, well, we're going to be 10, they're just going to turn around and go, I can't do that. I can't work any harder. I'm running around like a blue-ass fly. Yeah, I can't comprehend how I can be a £10 million business. So we've got to be a little bit careful with that. It's done as a positive, inspiring, you know, charge people up. If you don't do it right, it basically puts this big millstone on their back, and then you'll get underperformance. Okay, so you've got to understand you might be excited about it, but you've got to make sure your team are excited about it. You know, this is as much for your team as it is for you. When you get to that certain size, you're not the one that's going to drive the business forwards. Yeah, it's your team that are going to drive it forwards. Okay, so this is all about how do we build a great team to move us forwards. Yeah, not about us. Okay, because we need that team to make it happen. You know, Kennedy didn't say this because he was going to put a man on the moon. He wasn't going to do the research. He wasn't going to sit there and solve all these amazing equations. He did it to inspire his team to go and do it. Not for him, yeah, for the greater good. The fact is, yeah, that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal. This nation, yeah, not NASA, not, you know, not a particular, this whole nation, we're all going to get behind this. Okay, so it's not just one department, it's the whole organization for this. And if it fits in with that purpose, that greater good, yeah, and you live by the values, then you've got this powerful mechanism that's going to drive you forwards. Okay, so, you know, it's, again, it takes a bit of work, but it's, you know, it is definitely worth it when you've got it. I would always say start with a numbers thing because it's the easiest one, but if you're going to do that, make sure you explain the numbers, because don't expect people to understand what a £10 million business looks like. You know, we often say that you've got to create an envisioned future. So paint a picture. What does a £10 million look like to them? What's in it for them? You know, if they're going to be sitting there doing the same thing, getting the same pay, well, they don't actually benefit from it. You know, you want to say that we're going to grow, then you guys are going to grow, you're going to be in better positions. You know, just imagine you're working for Apple back in the 1980s, you know, under Steve Jobs. You know, we're going to be a world-class, you know, business, you know, making amazing pieces of tech. You know, that sort of inspiration to be part of that. You know, Elon Musk at the moment, you know, be part of Tesla, you know, changing the world into an electric world. These are things that bring people in and actually make them want to, you know, want to work for you and put more than, you know, more than the normal effort into it. So, so what was the, yeah, so never good enough, you know, that there's always this drive to, you know, to go forwards. You know, comfort is not the end of the goal. You know, it's never the goal for ambition. You know, yeah. So comfort, it's not about being comfortable. It's about constantly being. I think somebody said it was David Bowie. It's bizarre how I just heard this yesterday. Actually, David Bowie said, you know, with you know, what people need to do is walk out into the sea until they can't touch the floor, you know, the sand, and make sure that you've got a good, you know, foot above your feet, and that's where you stay. So always just, you know, just out in the depth, not too deep where you start to panic, but not with your feet on the shore. That's where creativity happens. That's where good things happen. You know, there's an old drawing of, you know, comfort zone, stress, you know, where the good things happen. You know, just pushing yourself enough that actually gets you motivated, gets juices going. And there's a little sort of story here that you know, what does the black belt mean? End of the journey, you know, and you know, the essence is it's, you know, once we achieve that, yeah, that is just the start. You know, and one of the, I'm not sure if it was in this book or Good to Great, but he talks about Sony's sort of BHAG back in the 1960s, you know, was to change the way people perceive shoddy Japanese goods. So this was done in 1968. Yeah, and that was their quest. That's what they drove to actually achieve. And you know, if you think back, you know, when did they actually achieve that goal? You know, probably 1988. You know, 20 years later. The problem with Sony, I believe, is they didn't then reset their goal. Because if you think, you know, at that peak of their power, you know, they owned half the music collection in the world. They had some of the best technical guys. They'd created the MP3 player. Yeah. Yeah, Apple came in and just pulled the rug from under their feet. Yeah, because they rested on their laurels. They became a financial business about making money, as opposed to the creative businesses where it started, and that's what made them great in the first place. So do you, how have you sort of worked on your BHAG, Gary? So you're on mute.
Hello, sorry. Our BHAG is very figure driven. Again, it was always to make the next step to that company, and you know, our growth is imperative for us. Our biggest problem, I think, is the details. How are we going to change? How are we going to get bigger and bigger? You know, we've been going for 15 years. You know, we keep setting those goals. Okay, we're going to be 10 million, 20 million. You know, it's got to the point now we want to be £100 million company.
Yeah.
How we do that? Okay, that's the interesting one. That's the hard part. And you made some good points there about trying to articulate that. So if we can articulate that to people within our teams, I think it would go some way to actually trying to achieve those.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to come back to that purpose as well. You know, so what's our purpose? You know, shipping solutions. You know, if you go back to Walmart, you know, to make millions of people happy. You know, so what do we do next? Yeah, well, have we made everybody happy? No, we haven't. But there are more people we can make happy. Yes, we can. It's relatively easy for them to go, right, well, we need, where haven't we got a theme park? Right, we need to go to Japan, build a theme park in Japan because there's a bunch of miserable people over there that need to be made happy. Okay, so it can actually help with that drive of where we need to go. You know, but the 100 million has got to be, well, why 100 million? What is it about that? You know, what are we not achieving that we should be able to achieve? So it is really getting back in, not just having a goal for the sake of a goal. There's got to be a purpose. There's got to be a why behind that. Okay, otherwise, you know, it does become just a, you know, why climb Mount Everest? Well, because it's there. You know, if you feel that climbing Mount Everest is a drag, you know, it's not going to be an enjoyable journey. And I think we did say here, you know, life is a journey. Yeah, it's the journey, not the destination. Okay, so you know, life is a journey, not a destination. You've got to have a destination to aim for, but that's not really the important bit. The important bit is to continue to grow, continue to develop, continue to be better tomorrow than you were today. That's the essence of life. Okay, if you're not growing, you're dying. Okay, so if you are going to go for bigger financial, you've got to come back and say, well, why do we want to do this? What's the purpose of this? What are we trying to achieve? Yeah, if it's just financials, yeah, I think you're missing the whole point of this. Okay, and you know, and the other thing is, you know, keep on trying. You know, you've got to be prepared to make mistakes. Do you know the biggest reason people don't set goals? Sabrina?
Because they might fail.
Because they might fail. Okay, that's why people don't set goals. Because if I set a goal, you know, if Kennedy had sort of sat there and said, right, by the end of the decade, we're going to put a man on the moon, and he'd failed, yeah, you go, oh, we might not be able to do that. And do you think a few of his advisors were saying we'd never do that? We'll never achieve that. In 9 years, you know, we'll never achieve that. Yeah, there'll be a few naysayers, a few people that said we couldn't do it. But, you know, he's got to be brave, and, you know, that's a public announcement. That's a public announcement to the world, you know, to Russia. You know, his biggest competitor, you know, to Russia. We are going to put a man on the moon and bring him back within the decade. That's a statement. That's a bold statement that he could have failed. Yeah, he's got to be prepared to say that on the basis if he actually failed. Okay, no one wanted to fail, but you've got to accept that there is a chance that you will fail. And if you do, you've got to dust yourself off and try again. You know, and if it hadn't done it by, you know, the end of the 60s and it had been 1972, you know, would it have been a major problem? Yeah, it's probably not a major problem, is it? Disappointing probably, but there'd be reasons why we didn't do it. If it turned around and said, look, we have spent 10 years working on how to do this and it is impossible, we just cannot find a way to do it, then fine, okay. The world doesn't stop because you don't achieve your goals. Okay, just because you don't get to £10 million business, does it matter? No. As long as you enjoy the journey of actually trying to get to 10 million. That's what life is about. Life is about enjoying the journey, not about having to be there, and it becomes a be all and end all. Because if you do that, I think the fear of failure, if you get closer and you feel, oh, we're not going to do this, it just holds you back. It becomes a negative. Life is a fine balance between the positives and the negatives. It's very easy for one to split back to the other one. So we're constantly, adjusting it, looking for those positives to keep that team going. Because at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to do: is keep the team performing, keeping it positive, keeping it moving forward. Don't. I think this part is, keep evolving. Don't worry about making mistakes. Try new things. And we have a thing in action. Test and measure. Test lots of things, measure them, and then find the ones that work and then put your effort into those. Don't gamble on one big thing, the one big thing that's going to solve my problem, because it invariably doesn't. Try 100 things, 5 or 6 things work, great, choose one of those. Again, I think Kennedy, if you imagine back to that space race, he'd have probably 5 or 6 things going at the same time, different ways, right? You guys work on that way of doing it. You guys work on that way of doing it. You guys work on that way of doing it. As long as you're talking, you're working, you're learning from each other, one of you will come up with the right thing. It won't just be, right, we're all going to get behind this one thing and keep going until this one works, because it may not. So I think sometimes it leads you in different areas. So Johnson & Johnson supply medical gauze, started using talcum powder, and then it became selling directly to the public. I know with the coronavirus, many of you have businesses out there have had to pivot, have had to change. I'm working with one at the moment that we've gone from B to B to B to C, and actually that B to C now has got a potential upside that we probably overlooked in the past. So this ability to, even when you hit a brick wall, is to be able to say, right, no, I can adapt. I can change the way I'm going to actually work and come at it. But that comes again from that team that live into the values, live into the culture, live into the purpose. If you don't have that, then it's very difficult to overcome these big hurdles. So there's a little strategic guide there. It's fairly straightforward. The cult. I always think, for me, the culture is, once you've got your values, okay, it's 4, and I would say somewhere between 3 and 6. Okay, don't go more than 6. It's just more difficult to remember. 3's great. 3, the brain really works well with 3s. 4, 5s, if you want to add a couple more, is fine. But once you've got the values, then the culture becomes, right, in this situation, how do we live those values? In this situation, how do we live those values? In this situation, how do we live those values? That then becomes the culture. So if I go back to my silos, my finance, sales, marketing, sales team, right, how do you guys live the values? They'll come up with their culture. Right, finance team, how do you live to the values? They'll come up with their culture. Yeah, so the cultures can be different, but they're based on the same core values, and therefore they're integratable. They'll work together. Okay, if you've got the big long list of culture statement, then what I tend to do is look at all of those things, and you categorize each of the culture points, and you can actually whittle them down into 3 or 4 values. Okay, it's a bit of a you can start with a lot, and then you narrow it down, or you try and find those 4. If you want, if you want a bit of help, I've got a list of 240 values on a sheet, and it's a little exercise. You can give that to each team member. They highlight the words that actually depict the company, and then from that we can boil that down into those core values. It takes a few hours to go through that process, but it's quite a nice way to actually come up with it. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to change it. If you come up with something and it's working, great. If you come up with something that there's a word in there that's not quite right, change it. Nothing's set in stone here, guys. It's nothing says you can't change and can't adapt. Come up with a purpose that works now, fantastic. Down the line you might go, oh, it's a little bit restrictive, or it's not quite powerful enough, and you come up with something better. Always look to improve. Good. So, any final points, Sabrina? And what's your major takeaway from the book summary? We can't say the book. I mean, the book is just full of gold. I mean, it's as I said when I put it out, it's hard to justify the book in a 10-page summary. It's a great one to have on audio as well. He's got a very good voice, so you can listen to that. But, so out of the summary, Sabrina, what was your top takeaway, and what?
Oh, there's a lot for me to take away on this. I've already mentioned the recognition bit. We need to improve at, and committing to our goal. Well, actually, even knowing what the goals are. I mean, this year we have known that we're heading for the 2 million turnover, which if you think back to 12 years ago, we had a 5 million turnover. So in a sense, it's a backward step, but it's not, because we've been through so much in between, and 12 years later to aim 25% increase to 2 million is good.
The other thing, it's not about the turnover, Sabrina, it's about the profit.
Okay. So you know what my stumbling block is. Absolutely, and it's not only, I mean, working towards these goals, but we need to recognise what we're heading for, recognise when we've got there, or we're good at changing on the way, but we take too long about it.
Yeah.
And I think we have got the team on board a lot more.
Yeah, definitely.
But we need to acknowledge that and make them feel part of it.
Yeah.
It's difficult working in 2 locations when we've got the field group under different. John's brother heads up that, and we don't, as a family, we don't all have the same ideology. So that does make it difficult.
Yeah, and that's why when you've got differences, then coming up with the commonalities in the values is so important, because this is not saying we've all got to be the same. I'm not saying common values mean we have to be the same. As I said, I don't share deep down some of the core values of Action Coach. I understand them, and I'm willing to adapt to them, and I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to change who I am.
No.
So it's not changing people, it's just making sure they get it and they adapt to it. And they go, when I'm on the field playing for you, I play in your way. Not playing my way, because that's what causes the problems. And too many people, certainly within my community, there's a lot of people that just won't change enough, and there's other people that change completely. And I worry with both of those. You've got to understand the culture of the business is the culture of the business, and if you want to play the game, then you have to adapt as a person to fit in. Cool, Bruce.
I think so. It sort of reminds me where we are really. I think we're probably pretty good on the values and culture.
Yeah.
I think the purpose, we're sort of halfway there. I think the BHAG, that's where we're falling short. I think really you mentioned the words inspiring and emotional.
Yeah.
I think we need to get more of that in there. So, but yeah, I think if we can make the purpose and the BHAG get everyone brought in on an emotional level, that would be a very big improvement.
Step forward. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good. Gary?
Same as Bruce, really. I think I say, we've got our bag, but just trying to articulate it to everybody and for ourselves as well as a management team as well. I think Bruce said there, to have it as, inspiring and emotional is quite a good idea.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Well, look, thanks guys for being on today, and we'll I'm continually sort of trying to find the inspiration to get more people on the book club call. We'll sort of play with times and things like that, but I think it is valuable to read it, and you certainly get through a lot more books, doing it this way than waiting for everybody to read a full book. So even if we don't hold the actual sessions every week, well, I might get in the habit of just sending one of these out every week so that everyone's aware of that there is some good stuff out there. So good. Well, look, have a great end of the week. Have a great Friday. Good weekend. Enjoy your more freedom to actually go and socialise with one other person for a 2-metre distance. And have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you hopefully next week. Take care. Bye for now.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.